Chapter 8: Arrivals, Meetings, and Nighttime Encounters. Jamie stood alongside his uncles, with his brother John always to his right. They waited as the procession entered, the king's guard leading the way, Ser Barristan at the front, followed closely by the king and two of his former companions. The king looked uncomfortable on his horse, and Jamie couldn't help but smirk. This fool had spent years claiming that if he had faced Ser Arthur, he would have won, just like Ned did, yet here he was, struggling to stay steady in the saddle. Jamie grimaced as the wheelhouse came into view. She would be inside, he thought, knowing that the next few days would be uncomfortable for him. Before he could dwell on that, he noticed John Arryn among the retinue, which surprised him. The Lord was known for his adherence to tradition and respect. Turning to those nearest him, Jamie dropped to one knee, and the others followed suit. "Casterly Rock is yours, your grace," he said. "Rise, Lord Jamie," the king replied. "Thank you, your grace." "Ah, Geryon. It's good to see you, my friend," the king said, moving toward his uncle. "You too, your grace," Geryon responded with a respectful bow. "It should be an epic tourney, don't you think, your grace?" Geryon continued. I do, Geryon. Lord Kevin. Your grace. And you must be Tyrion, the king said as he approached Jamie's brother. "I am, your grace," Tyrion replied. Good, good. Jamie watched as the wheelhouse door opened, and his sister stepped out, holding the hand of her son. Joffrey was every bit his mother's child. His blonde hair and green eyes reminded Jamie of his nephew Tyreek. The Lannister genes were evidently strong. He swallowed hard as she made her way toward him. "My queen," he said, executing an exaggerated bow. "Lord Jamie," she replied, a devious smirk spreading across her face as her eyes practically devoured him. He noticed her gaze shift to his right, landing on John, and her expression quickly changed from predatory to something resembling disgust. Battling his instincts, Jamie forced a smile, determined to maintain his composure in the face of her scrutiny. Jamie looked back at his sister, her eyes sparkling with delight. "My queen," his uncle Kevin said, bowing deeply. His gesture was as exaggerated as Jamie's, but somehow felt more sincere. "Uncle, it's good to see you again," Jamie replied. "You too, my queen." The toady tone of Kevin's voice grated on him. "Your grace," Geryon chimed in, his voice dripping with false courtesy. He and Cersei had never seen eye to eye. His humorous ways and lack of seriousness always irritated her. "Uncle." Finally, Cersei turned her gaze to Tyrion. The look she gave him made the one she had directed at John earlier seem almost welcoming. Disgust, contempt, even outright hatred flashed across her face. Before she could say anything, Jamie decided to greet his nephew. "Greetings, your grace." "Uncle," the small boy replied, devoid of any emotion. "How was your trip, your grace?" "Terrible, uncle. The Westerlands are boring." "They are an acquired taste, your grace." The boy simply stared at him, disinterest etched on his features as he surveyed his surroundings. Jamie couldn't think of anything to capture the boy's attention, and to be honest, he didn't want to. After all, he wasn't the prince. "Lord Jamie." John Arryn's voice called as he approached. "Lord John, it's good to see you again." "Aye, my lord. Though perhaps it could have been under better circumstances. My condolences on your and your family's loss." "I thank you, my lord. Perhaps we should move inside. I'm sure you and their graces could use some refreshments, and I'll have you shown to your rooms." "Of course, my lord." Are you Ned's boy?" John Arryn asked, glancing to his right. "I am, my lord." "Jon Snow." John bowed respectfully as he greeted the old lord. "Well met, Jon Snow. I was your father's foster father for many years." My father spoke fondly of you, Lord John." "It seems I was named after you as well." Ned honors me. I look forward to seeing more of you. You, young John, Jamie said, turning to the group and nodding for them to head inside. He and John walked toward the king and queen, starting their journey into the castle. The queen's gaze alternated between glowering at John and trying to undress Jamie with her eyes. "Ah, Ned's lad. How are you finding the rock, Snow?" the king asked, noticing John. "It's wonderful, Your Grace," John replied. "It's not Winterfell, though. You must be missing the north and your father." Your Grace, but Lord Jamie and his family have been very kind." "Good. Looking forward to the tourney?" "Watching all those knights fight raises the blood, and who knows? In a few years, it might be you taking part, lad." Your Grace. I'm looking forward to competing." "Competing?" The king looked at both John and Jamie with confusion. "Surely the lad's too young to compete, Kingslayer." "No, Your Grace. We're doing something different this year, a squire's dueling tournament for those under 12, Jamie explained, not bothering to correct the king's use of the nickname he loathed. "Why would you do that, Lord Jamie?" the king asked, genuine interest lighting up his features. "These boys we train, Your Grace, they're the future. They'll be the ones fighting long after we cannot. So let's see them compete and give them something to showcase their talent, something to aspire to before they're old enough to enter the lists themselves." The king nodded, intrigued by the idea. If it meant more fighting, it was certainly something he'd be interested in, though the thought of young boys with weapons in hand disturbed him. "It'll be tourney swords, of course, Your Grace, not live steel." Well then, I'm all for it." "Good luck, lad. I'm sure you'll make your father proud." "I have no doubt he will, Your Grace," Jamie said, smirking at John. Throughout the exchange, Cersei glowered, her disdain for John intensifying. As they reached the lift, as Jamie relaxed and turned to smile at John, John shuddered. There was a time when a smile from his sister would make his heart race, but now it only filled him with repulsion. That night's feast was a boisterous affair, with the king in high spirits. The thought of watching men fight always stirred his blood. Tyrion observed as the king groped and ogled the serving girls, his enthusiasm palpable. Seated at the high table alongside his brother and uncles, Tyrion managed to keep a safe distance from Cersei, allowing him to enjoy the evening despite her withering glares. John sat beside him, thanks to Jamie and Gerion's insistence. At this point, John felt like family, at least to some members of the house. At a lower table, John's uncles were seated, and it seemed there was a competition brewing between John and Tyrion for the most glares received, Tyrion from Cersei, and John from his uncle Kevin and Lancel a few seats down. The whole situation amused Tyrion to no end, especially since John appeared completely unfazed by it, a stark contrast to how he had been when he first arrived. Tyrion felt a pang of pride, knowing he had played a small part in that transformation. "You enjoying yourself, John?" he asked. Tyrion, though I notice you're not drinking as much as usual." "I can't, John. If I do, there'll be none left for the king." He gestured toward the king, who was downing a large tankard, and they both laughed, earning an even bigger frown from Cersei in return. "He likes his drink, all right." That he does," John agreed. Tyrion watched as John got up and headed toward where the king, queen, and Jamie were sitting. He was about to call him back when Uncle Gerion sat down beside him, his ever-present smile looking a bit different this time, directed at John. "Where's he going?" Tyrion asked. It's about that time, all right." "What time, Uncle?" "Story time." Tyrion smiled as he watched John bid his farewells, eager for the tales that awaited him. John moved confidently toward the king and queen, flanked by his brother and Lord Arryn. His uncle had been right, it was time for Joy's story, and nothing, not even a grand feast, would keep him from that. He glanced at his uncle as the boy left the room. Yes, John was definitely family. Across the table, Cersei sat beside her brother, Lord Aaron, and her uncle Kevin. Their usual chatter was driving her mad. She should be sitting next to Jaime, close enough to touch him, to feel his presence beside her. Instead, she was stuck with these two dullards. Her husband was being his typical oafish self, but tonight, that might work in her favor. It would be easier to slip away to Jaime if the fool was busy entertaining serving wenches in his room. As she surveyed the room, she felt a mix of disdain and annoyance. These were her subjects, her people. While they showed her deference, the way they gazed at her brother irritated her. She was the queen, the one they should adore. She hated them all, but her gaze fell on the figure she despised most, the demon who had killed her mother, the source of her family's shame. A voice whispered in her mind, Valonqar, sending a shudder through her. Just then, the northern bastard her brother had seemingly adopted made his way to the front of the table. The boy had the audacity to address his betters. He should be whipped for such impertinence. As she scrutinized him, something about his face stirred a sense of familiarity within her. She knew he was Ned Stark's bastard, but it was something deeper. Your Grace, my lords, the boy said, bowing respectfully. Young Snow, what is it, lad? Her husband asked, pulling his head away from the bosom he had been nuzzling. I came to bid you good night, your Grace, and to you, your Grace, he said, looking from her husband to her. And you too, my lords, he added. Good night to you, lad, John Arryn replied, a smile spreading across his face. Good night, John, her brother said, his expression unfamiliar to her. What a well-behaved lad, not at all like what they say about bastards. But then again, he is Ned's boy, John Arryn remarked as the king nodded in agreement. Is he coming along well, Lord Jaime? John asked his brother. Aye, my lord. John will surprise everyone in a few years, mark my words, Jaime replied. Good. It's nice to see the lad doing well. Ned deserves it, the king said before returning to his revelry. As the feast concluded, Jaime made his way to his quarters. The king had indulged quite a bit, and Jaime was relieved he'd hired 2 women to serve as his attendants for the evening. His servants were just that, servants, and they deserved better than to be groped by a drunken oaf. Luckily, Tyrion had known exactly the right ladies for the job, and as usual, his brother delivered. Entering his room, Jaime began to disrobe. Overall, the day had gone well. He had managed to avoid his sister and kept the king and his entourage entertained. Jon had been well received, with both the king and Lord Arryn seemingly pleased with the boy. Jaime had been surprised when Jon left so early, but the lad knew his manners and bid farewell to the king, earning some praise from those present. Others, however, had not been as courteous. His nephew was a nightmare, only 3 days old and already brimming with self-importance and disdain. Jaime placed his clothes on the dresser and walked naked into his sleeping area, which contained a large bed and a small table, just the way he liked it. Years spent in the White Sword Tower had likely contributed to his aversion to excess comfort. As he moved the covers, he heard a soft squeal and a small moan. No, she wouldn't, he thought, his heart racing. Jaime, what took you so long? The covers fell away, revealing her in all her glory, her blonde hair sprawled across the pillows, her firm breasts rising and falling quickly. His gaze locked onto her. Jaime traveled down to where her legs were parted, the soft golden curls at the junction of her thighs already damp with moisture. Her fingers moved rhythmically as she moaned softly. Come to bed, brother. It's been so long. I've missed you. Jaime glanced around the room and noticed her clothes crumpled on the floor. He picked up the dress and threw it at her, the impact startling her and halting her movements. She looked up at him, hurt evident in her eyes, but then fury took over. You dare reject me? I'm your queen, you belong to me. Get out. Get out now, or so help me, Jaime said, his voice laced with anger. "You'll what?" she challenged defiantly. "I'll drag you naked down the halls to your husband's room and tell him what you've done. How do you think he'll react?" "You wouldn't dare." Jamie stepped toward her, reaching out to grab her hair, but she quickly pulled back. Fury and hatred filled her eyes, yet as she began to dress, tears streamed down her face. "Jamie, Jamie, my love, we belong together. Can't you see? We were meant to be. We'll never be together, Cersei. Never." He left the room in a rush, quickly dressing before heading down the corridor. He walked as fast as he dared, soon arriving at the door to the feasting hall. As he entered, he heard familiar voices. His uncle Geryon and brother were there, along with Jon, who had obviously been unable to sleep. Jamie. Come join us. We were just telling Jon here about the time you and Tyrion got lost in the vaults." "We didn't get lost, Geryon. Jamie and I were playing hide and seek," Tyrion chimed in. "It's not hide and seek if no one's looking for you," Geryon replied, causing all three of them to laugh. Jamie smiled and took a seat. Jon immediately poured him a drink, which he downed in one go, prompting a frown from the boy. Jon poured him another, and this time, Jamie sipped quietly as the stories continued to flow. He knew he needed to get some sleep soon. Tomorrow promised to be a busy day, with the Tyrells and Tullis arriving, along with the rest of the Lords of the Vale. He figured he could linger for a while. By the time everyone settled down for the night, perhaps he'd finally be able to sleep without the image of her in his mind. Davin Lannister was more than just drunk. He stumbled down the hall, struggling to find his room when he unexpectedly collided with a blonde woman, tears streaming down her face. No, she wasn't just a girl, she was a stunningly beautiful woman. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern mingling with his inebriation. "He doesn't want me," she cried. "Why doesn't he want me? Am I not attractive?" Who doesn't want you?" "Whoever he is, he's a fool. You're beautiful, the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." It was a line, to be sure, but it was the best he could muster in his drunken state. You think I'm beautiful?" she asked, her voice wavering. "You are very beautiful, my lady. You want me, don't you?" she said, stepping closer. Davin felt a rush of desire as he noticed his body responding. Thankfully, he wasn't as far gone as he thought. He pulled her into a kiss, guiding her toward his room. He could feel her hands exploring him through his clothes, and all he wanted was to be naked and inside her as quickly as possible. I want you," he admitted. Lannisport. Olenna was relieved the journey had come to an end. She was tired and longed for a good bath, some wine, and a proper meal served at a table, not in a tent. Part of her felt miffed that they wouldn't be staying at Casterly Rock itself, but she took comfort in knowing a large residence had been made available to them. As they traveled through the town, she noticed the impressive arrangements that had been made. Lannisport had always been grand, but now it seemed transformed. Pavilions stretched as far as the eye could see, merchants' tents overflowed with goods, and in the distance, the tilt yard appeared much larger than the one in King's Landing, with seating that was equally impressive. But one thing seemed out of place to her: a small domed arena, open on one side and with seating on three sides, was built to the left of the tilt yard. Its purpose confounded her. As she watched, a group of horsemen approached, several of them clearly guards, but the three at the front stood out as important. Among them was a tall, graceful blonde man. He could only be a Lannister. Beside him rode two small boys, one with dark hair and the other with dirty blonde locks. As they drew closer, the blonde features became clearer. Not a boy, then, but a dwarf, the imp of Casterly Rock. "Greetings, Lord Mace, my lords and ladies. I welcome you to Lannisport," the tall Lannister said. "Well met, Lord Jamie. May we pass and do the introductions once we're all on our feet?" "Indeed, my lord." I've come to escort you to your accommodations. How gracious of you, Lord Jamie. Think nothing of it, my lord. You are honored guests, and men of your importance deserve no less. Olenna watched as her foolish son puffed up like a puffer fish, clearly impressed. Apparently, Lord Jamie knew something of the game after all. Her gaze shifted to the two others with him. The dwarf was nothing like she had expected. The stories of his grotesqueness were legendary, yet to Olenna's wizened eyes, he simply resembled a slightly overgrown boy. His companion, however, was altogether different, dark hair and gray eyes. So, this was the stark bastard. What was his name again? Oh, never mind, she thought. They rode through the town until they reached a large house with a vast courtyard. The party began to dismount, and Olenna turned to her granddaughter and her good daughter as they made their way from the wheelhouse. The house was impressive, large and imposing, worthy of her family. She moved toward where her son and Lord Jamie were talking, relieved that he hadn't tried to slight them. "Mother, may I present Lord Jamie?" her son said. "My lady, it's a pleasure to meet you," Jamie replied. "Is it now?" Olenna said, raising an eyebrow. "Why, of course. Why settle for one queen when you can have two?" She glanced at him, noticing his gaze shifting from her to her granddaughter. Perhaps he wasn't such a fool after all. He motioned to his companions. "My lady, may I introduce my brother, Lord Tyrion, and my page, Jon Snow." "Well met, my lady," the dwarf said, bowing slightly. "Lady Olenna," the boy said, nodding his head in a courteous bow. Olenna studied him carefully. He hadn't tried to kiss her hand, aware that his station might offend her, but his courtesy seemed genuine. "My lord, young Snow," she acknowledged as Garland and Loras joined them, while her granddaughter approached. She observed as Lord Jamie and his brother made their introductions to the boys and her good daughter, while Jon Snow quickly engaged the two boys in conversation about the tournament, captivating their interest with something he shared. "And this must be Lady Marjorie, the Rose of Highgarden herself," Lord Jamie said, taking her granddaughter's offered hand and placing a gentle kiss upon it. "Lord Jamie, a pleasure to meet you. I've heard so much about you. Not all of it's true, I'm afraid, only the good stuff." Jamie's words elicited a small laugh from Marjorie. "May I introduce my page, Jon Snow?" "Well met, Lord Snow," Marjorie said, offering him her hand, which he took and kissed. "Just John, my lady." "Well then, well met, just John," her granddaughter giggled, causing the young man to smile. Olenna watched the exchange with keen interest. The boy's smile transformed his features completely, he beamed, and it was hard not to smile back. His whole face lit up, revealing glimpses of the handsome man he would one day become. She would need to keep an eye on him. Tyrell women always had trouble resisting a handsome face, and she was no exception. The meal they enjoyed that night was the best they'd had in a long time. Since they had embarked on their long journey to the tourney, the kitchens had been stocked remarkably well. There was fine arbor gold and the best foods from the Reach, including some of her favorite strawberry and lemon tarts. The quality of the pastries and their freshness pleasantly surprised her. She could see that her grandmother was enjoying herself too, sipping wine and sampling the various cheeses that had just been delivered that day. Meanwhile, her father held court at the table, speaking with the other lords of the Reach who had already arrived. Thankfully, Lord Tarley hadn't shown up yet. His grim demeanor had a way of draining the atmosphere from any room. Loras turned to her, a teasing glint in his eye. "So, are you going to enter with me or what?" "No, Loras, I'm not. It's for those under 12 name days, and I just celebrated my 13th. So they won't know." "Do you expect me to lie?" "No, not lie. Just don't tell them." "No, that's not something a knight would do." She listened as her brothers continued their debate. What were they discussing? How could Loras enter anything? He was too young. She needed to know what was going on. "What are you two arguing about?" she asked. We're not arguing, we're discussing, Loras replied, his smug smile irritating her yet again. Okay, discussing then? Loras wants me to join him and fight in the tourney. But you're too young. You can't fight in the tourney. Think about Willis, she said, concern evident in her voice. No, sis, it's not like that. There's a squire and page's tourney, a set of duels. I'm entering, and I wanted Garland to enter too, but he's too old, so it'll just be me representing the family and winning glory. She rolled her eyes at him and glanced at Garland. He looked eager to enter, but he would never lie about his age, he was far too gallant for that. A squire's tourney, though, she had never heard of such a thing. Where did you hear about this? John told us. He's entering and says most of the squires and pages are too. Of course, they will, especially when they hear about the prizes, Loras replied with a grin. You mean Jon Snow? He told you about this? Was that what you were all discussing so excitedly? Yeah, he's Jaime Lannister's page, or is it squire? I'm not sure. But he's lucky enough to be trained by Jaime himself. Anyway, he mentioned there's a dueling tournament for squires and pages under 12 named days. And there are prizes. I really hope I get to face him. If Jaime's teaching him, he must be good. Prizes? Apparently, the semi-finalists each get 250 gold dragons, the runner-up gets 500, and the winner takes home 1,000, Garland said, sounding a bit grumpy. She nodded and glanced at her brother. She knew the gold didn't matter to him, it was the competition he craved. He'd love nothing more than to test himself against the others. Even though he had said he had no plans to enter tournaments, unlike Loras, who was practically living for the chance, this was different. She could tell that Garland would enjoy this. She almost reached out to hug him but knew he wouldn't accept it. She didn't want to embarrass him, so she just nodded sympathetically and thought about the tournament itself. It would be interesting to see boys of her age, along with Loras and Garland, fighting. She found herself looking forward to it. She'd be there to cheer Loras on. As she thought about it, she remembered the smile the dark-haired boy had given her earlier. She wondered if he'd be any good. Loras seemed to think so. Now she had two people to cheer for. Meanwhile, Jon Arryn walked from his rooms to break his fast. He had slept better than he had in a long while, and it struck him as funny that Tywin Lannister's home made him breathe more easily than King's Landing ever did. As he passed by an open door, he heard laughter and giggling. Curiosity piqued, he stepped inside. No, yawn. Horsey, go faster. A little girl exclaimed excitedly. Like this, princess, the boy replied, moving quicker. A girl shrieked with delight as she clung to the young man's shoulders. Yay, go Horsey, go. Jon watched with a smile as his namesake played with the little girl. Her laughter grew louder and more infectious, and for a moment, they seemed blissfully unaware of the troubles in the world outside. The young man shared his father's looks, but his temperament was quite different. Where Ned was stoic and reserved, his son appeared outgoing and expressive. Jon recalled the more serious expression the boy wore when speaking to the king. Hello there, lad, Jon said as the young man turned to him. Lord Jon, I'm sorry I didn't notice you there. No, not Jon. You, Jon, the little girl interjected, looking back and forth between them. Joy, he's Jon too, Lord Jon, the young man clarified. No, you Jon. She insisted, squeezing the boy tightly. I'm sorry, my lord. Joy's a little shy around new people, he explained. No worries, lad. And who is this little sweetheart? Jon inquired, smiling at the girl. This is Joy, my lord, Lord Gerion's daughter. Yoy! Joy exclaimed, causing the old lord to chuckle. It was nice meeting you, Joy, and good to see you again, young Jon. Enjoy the rest of your day. You too, my lord, the boy replied. If only that were possible, John thought as he left the room and headed to breakfast. He hoped Robert wouldn't be up this early and that the Queen wouldn't be either. A simple, quiet meal was all he wanted. The realm's work could wait. Entering the dining room, he noticed that only Jairyn and Tyrion Lannister were present. He helped himself to some water and made his way over to them. "Good morning, Lord John," Tyrion said, and his uncle greeted him in kind. "Lord Tyrion, Lord Jairyn." John sat down and waited for the serving girl to approach. Within moments, she arrived, and he ordered some bread, fruit, and warm milk, as his stomach wasn't ready for a large meal in the morning. "Did you sleep well, my lord?" Tyrion asked. "Indeed, very well, thank you, Lord Tyrion," John replied. "Lord Jairyn, I met your daughter. A wonderful girl, if you don't mind me saying." "She and young Jon Snow seem quite friendly," said Jaime. "Aye, that they are, my lord. Joy's taken quite a shine to young Jon, and the boy indulges her, well, spoils her, really," Jairyn replied. "Good. He seems to be settling in well?" Jaime asked. "Aye, that he is, my lord. The best decision my nephew ever made was making that young man his page." What was that, my lord?" Jairyn inquired. "Oh, nothing, Lord Jairyn. I was just thinking out loud. It's a force of habit at my age, I'm afraid." Jaime chuckled, causing the others to laugh as well. It would be a good match, though, Jon and Joy, two bastards of great houses. Perhaps a keep could be arranged for them. If the two got along well, it would be for the best. Something to consider once they were older. He'd have to clear it with Ned, but that wouldn't be a problem. Jaime glanced out at the assembled crowds. These last few weeks had been building up to this moment, and he was pleased with the turnout. Tyrion and his uncles had done well, all the great houses were represented, except for the north. He had expected the Starks wouldn't show, but he could sense Jon's disappointment at their absence. He was tired of the greetings, though. The Tyrells had been fine, but the Tullys looked at him like they were better than him, the damn fish that they were. The Lords of the Vale had always carried an air of superiority, but at least they had something to be proud of. All the Tullys had done was force marriages, and given that their daughters included a bitter trout and a crazy one, that was probably an achievement overall. He looked to the king and queen beside him and shuddered. That crazy woman would surely have been the death of him had he stuck with her. As he scanned the crowd, his family sitting to his left and the great lord spread about the arena, Jon handed him the proclamation. "Your graces, my lords and ladies, good people of Lannisport, the Westerlands, and beyond, I bid you welcome to the tourney of Lannisport." The crowd erupted in cheers. "My father fought bravely for his people and his king. He will be missed, gone, but not forgotten. Tywin. Tywin. Tywin," they chanted, a testament to one of Tyrion's many accomplishments. "This tournament is held in his honor and in recognition of the great victory won by our King Robert, the first of his name. Hail, good King Robert." The chants echoed through the grounds. Tyrion had a remarkable talent for igniting the crowd's enthusiasm, and Jaime couldn't help but glance at his smirking brother. "So, without further ado, by your gracious permission, let the games begin." The cheers swelled to a deafening roar. As Jaime took his seat, the crowd began to chant his name, "Lord Jaime. Lord Jaime." He looked over at Tyrion, who merely shook his head, then turned to Jon, who offered him a warm smile.